Hey everybody. Happy BCB. I just want to thank all you all for coming. I know there's a lot of cool events that are happening right now and throughout the day and tomorrow too. So the fact that you all are taking this amount of time out of your day to learn about Greek spirits really means a lot to me. So let's just get right into it. We only have 45 minutes and so much to cover. So just a quick overview of what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to basically Greek spirits 101. Raise the hands. How many people here have tried Greek liqueurs before? Besides ouzo and besides mastika. All right. So there's a lot of Greek spirits that are in Greece, and I want to take this opportunity to teach you all about it, a little bit about it. So we'll go over 6 spirits today. We're going to talk about tipuro, mastika, ouzo, metaxa, racomolo, and tentura. I'm going to try to give a little bit of modern uses. So we'll talk about how in Greek culture, how they're consumed, and then we'll go into a little bit about how it is drunk in today or how you can use it in cocktails. And then I want to talk a little bit about modern Greece because it's really cool. So quick, that's me with my collection of Greek spirits. So quick little background about me. I am the general manager of a restaurant called Usia. We are on 57th Street and between 11th and 12th Avenue. We are focusing on Greek food. We have an all Greek wine list, and I do the cocktail program there as well. And I try to use Greek spirits in as many fun ways as possible. Third generation restaurant family. We also own Oceana and Molivos in Midtown Manhattan. My grandfather comes from the island of Lesbos, which is the hometown of ouzo. And my first introduction to Greek spirits was when I was 12 years old, sipping ouzo from my grandpa's cup. And the first time I got drunk was off of ouzo as well when I was like 16, or I don't remember how old I was. But anyway, enough about me. We'll kind of keep on going. So briefly, I just want to talk about the history of alcohol in Greece. So Greece has been a wine-producing country for thousands of years. Over 6,500 years ago is when they found the first stomped grape remnants in Greece. And it's been a defining characteristic of the Hellenic culture for millennia. Even today, Greeks are known for being social people, social drinkers, and wine is always at the table. Wine is food. You don't just drink. You have food and wine, food and spirits. When you're drinking ouzo or tipuro, for example, you're having some olives, you're having some nuts, you're having some salty fish, and things like that. One thing that Greeks should get a little bit of credit for is kind of spreading the love of wine throughout Europe because of their worship of the god Dionysus. He was the god of grape harvest, wine, fertility, theater, ritual madness, sex, and all the good stuff. And through his worship, spread the love of wine and alcohol throughout the world. So a little bit quick little notes about distilling in Greece. It's kind of debated when distilling was invented or when it started, but Aristotle gets credit for mentioning it a long time ago with water. He talked about how seawater can be made potable by boiling it and capturing the vapors, and that other liquids like wine can be put through the same process. So while he didn't invent distilling, he had the idea of it, and that could you can maybe give Greeks some credit for that. But distilling really came to Greece during the conquests of the Ottoman Empire. So, Ottoman Empire conquered Greece and Europe, and we know that distilling, that technology was definitely invented in the Arab world in the Middle East, and through the conquest of the Ottoman Empire, they took that technology with them. The first Greeks to distill were in Mount Athos, which is a monastery in the northern part of Greece. I don't know what it's up with monks and distilling. Monks and alcohol, they go hand in hand. I guess they're trying to capture the Holy Spirit, and they did that with the invention of tipuro. They've been basically producing moonshine for centuries by distilling grapes. And let's just get right into it, right? Let's taste some stuff. So we're tasting a few spirits, like I mentioned. Tipuro is what we're going to start with first. That's your glass in your top left. Then we're tasting mastika, which is a flavored liqueur made out of mastic resin. Ouzo, which is a lot of people are familiar with, an anise-based spirit. Metaxa, which is it's basically a flavored and infused brandy. Racomolo, which is a honey cinnamon liqueur from Crete. And then tentura, which is a delicious herbal cinnamon liqueur. Cool. So tipuro. What is tsipuro? So tsipuro is a pumice brandy. So pumice is basically the remnants of winemaking. So after you make wine, you're left with a mass of skins, the pulp, the stems, a lot of thick solids. So to make pumice brandy, you'd basically take that, throw it into a still, maybe add some water. Sometimes they'd add some herbs, and then they distill that with a still that looks something like what's on the top right there. The history of making tsipuro in Greece, basically they'd make it with or without anise. Both are equally as popular throughout history. Today you're mainly seeing more without anise because we have ouzo, and we'll get into that later. Other words for tsipuro are raki or tsikudya, which is basically a dialect from the southern islands of Crete. But we'll just call it tsipuro. For all intents and purposes, it's the same thing. So for centuries, tsipuro has been produced locally. Something that maybe one guy in the village would have, a still. And everyone, all the farmers and winemakers would go to him. Hey, Stavros, let's go. You have my pumice. Can you help me? Yeah, let's go fill up our jugs of tsipuro and party. It wasn't really commercially produced. Actually, it wasn't legally commercially produced until the 1980s. So basically, from the 14th century until the 1980s, it was something that was done in the villages, in people's homes, in basements. And that's why you kind of call it Greek moonshine. It was also considered the poor man's wine. So think about Greece as being a very agricultural-based country or agricultural-based economy. People would sell their grapes or sell the wine to bigger producers or bottlers, and they'd keep the pumice for themselves because they keep the tsipuro for themselves. That's what they drink at home. That's what they drink. That's what they serve for their friends. One big moment that happened for tsipuro's history is in 2006. It was granted PDO status. So PDO stands for Protected Designation of Origin. It's the same thing that happens all throughout Europe, in Italy, Spain, France. Champagne could only be produced in Champagne. A Barolo wine can only be produced in Barolo. Tsipuro could only be produced in Greece with indigenous Greek grape varietals. And since 2006, you've seen quality of tsipuro really start to rise. So before that, like I said, it was basically moonshine, people making it at home, secret recipes that they'd making with their families or in the village, and only one guy in the village would have the ability to serve it and make it. But since 2006, you're seeing a lot of bigger distilleries are starting to produce tsipuro, focusing on single varietals, single Greek varietals, using more high quality spirit wine, adding back wine, not just using the mass left over. And yeah. So how is it consumed? In Greece, it is served a lot of different ways, mainly neat, as an aperitif, also as a digestif, and also something to just drink throughout your meal. There are restaurants called tsikudakia in Greece where you'll order a carafe of tsipuro, and then basically, depending on how much you order, the owner of the restaurant will just keep giving you snacks. Some sardines, some feta cheese, olives. What else? Keftedes, meatballs, tzatziki, taramasalata, all the good stuff. It's also great as an after-dinner drink. I mean, having it in a snifter glass and sipping it after a big meal is definitely popular in Greece as well. So in order to be considered tsipuro, you have to use Greek grape varietals. So you're not really going to see tsipuro made with Chardonnay or with Cabernet. They're mainly using the local varietals of Greece. And there are hundreds of grapes that are indigenous to Greece. Almost always you're going to be seeing aromatic styles of grapes being used, like Moscofilero, which is what you have in the glass in front of you. Moscofilero literally means the musk of flowers, the smell of flowers. So it's definitely a very floral style. Muscat of Livanos is another popular aromatic grape that is used. Sideritis, Assyrtiko, and Ayurgitiko are other examples. We could talk for hours about the wines, but I want to talk more about tsipuro and give a chance for you to taste. Pumice brandy. So pumice brandy is similar to grappa. Like grappa is another example of a pumice brandy. It exists all over the world. People are making pumice brandy all over the world, but to be considered tsipuro, it has to be using Greek varietals and being made in Greece. So just to recap, I said before, traditional versus modern tsipuro. Traditionally, it was made in the basements and stills, and now commercially, I think you could thank the Italians a little bit, like Jacopo Poli and Nonnino. Nonnino's a booth here today. That focusing on the single varietal of grapes, I think, set off a trend. And now in Greece, you're seeing a same appreciation of the indigenous varietals, focusing on one grape instead of just taking a whole collection of it, and allowing the tsipuro to showcase the essence of the spirit. And that's what is so special about tsipuro for me. Anise or not to anise. So like I said, like throughout time, people would add herbs and spices into the tsipuro while they're distilling it. But today, I think you're mainly seeing unanis-added tsipuro being sold and distributed. But it does exist, so it's worth noting. So let's taste. So this is a 100% Moscofilero tsipuro. It comes from a distillery called Verino in the southern part of Greece. They source all their grapes from an awesome winery called Skouras Winery, which produces high-quality Greek wines, one of the best wine producers in Greece. So what do you guys smell? What does it smell similar to? Grapes, definitely. I mean, it's a grape-based spirit, so you should be smelling grapes. Green pear. Yeah, definitely. Grass. It's a little grassy, or definitely herbal, for sure. Totally floral. Yeah, I mean, floral for me is the thing that jumps out of the glass the most, and that's what I really love about tsipuro, especially when you compare it to things like grappa. Like I love grappa, but to me, tsipuro always has this very floral, light expression on the nose that I think is beautiful. I'm talking at a good pace. All right, good. All right, let's taste it together. Yeah, please.
What is the ABV range?
It ranges. I mean, definitely a minimum of 40. I think this one is at 45% alcohol. I'd say between like 42 to 50 is kind of the range for sure. Yeah. So what do you guys think? I mean, for me, it's pretty smooth on the palate. You definitely have a warming feeling as it kind of comes down, but it's definitely smooth. And I think the floral notes definitely follow through on the palate. That's something I love about tsipuro. So there's a lot of great producers that are available right now in the United States. This one we're tasting now is Verino. Another one I love is a distillery called Tsilili. They're fantastic from the northern part of Greece where tsipuro was invented. Haraki is another great example from the island of Crete, which makes tsikoudia or raki, the same thing but different name. Those are going to be a little bit more robust in flavor. But in general, you're going to have these sort of floral, light, aromatic notes. Yeah. Any questions? Or do you guys want to keep tasting? What do you think? Let's move on. Yeah.
On the name on the bottom of our tasting sheet, it has two names that represent producers, it seems.
Oh, so this one's just the distillery is called Verino, and they're calling this one Ipsikaminos, is the name of the bottle. Yeah. Everything else is just the producer. You're welcome. So tsipuro, like I said, throughout history and culturally, it's mainly consumed neat, during a meal, or before or after. So there's really no rules about it. But there's not really a history of using tsipuro in cocktails. And that's sort of fairly new, and that's something I've been experimenting with at Osea. So it's a very aromatic spirit. So I think it's great to use in cocktails that call for aromatic spirits, like pisco, or gin, or tequila. A lot of people have been comparing tsipuro to grappa, but to me it tastes a lot more similar to pisco, in my opinion, because it is a little bit more floral, a little lighter and fragrant, and I love using it in a sour. And again, now they're making, modern distillers in Greece are aging the tsipuro and trying to make more fine-aged brandies with a tsipuro history. So it's great as an after-dinner drink in a snifter glass. Cool. All right, so next we're going to talk about mastika. All right, so mastika. Mastika is a Greek liqueur, but it's also a product. It's a spice, a resin, it's a lot of different things. So on the top, in the middle picture here, is a mastika resin, or they call it the mastika tears. So mastika is such a cool thing. It makes me emotional talking about it. So mastika tears are basically the resin from the mastic tree. So this tree grows all over the Mediterranean. However, only in this one small part of the island of Chios, which is right here, Alex? All right? Yeah. Right in that little island, only a small village on this island do these trees produce these tears. So as you can see here, it looks like a little drop of water. these farmers it's a handmade process where they score the trees and they start to secrete this sap, clear like sap. It looks like a tear. And actually throughout history, they would call it the crying trees. It's a pretty awesome product. It's the original chewing gum. So if you take it, it feels like a pebble, but if you start to chew it, it softens up and it has a chewing gum-like consistency. I tried to grab some, I lost it, but you can find it at some Greek specialty stores. It's also used in cooking and baking. Like they make a lot of Greek pastries out of it and breads. It also has a lot of medicinal properties. So since 10th BC was when it was first mentioned by Hippocrates, he was mentioning its medicinal properties. So they would add it to wine. They would drink it to help with digestion. They would chew it to help whiten their teeth. This was before chewing gum and teeth whitener was out there. So you can imagine how important this product was, right? Everyone with bad breath in the ancient times. In ancient Rome was when it really started to become more popularized. So they were the ones who would add it to wine and to promote its medicinal properties. In the Byzantine era is when you really started to see it take off. So yeah, during the Byzantine era, the emperor, they had basically a monopoly. The only place that could produce mastika is a small village. So it was being exported all around the world. So imagine this one product being part of an integral piece of the spice trade. It ends up becoming worth its weight in gold during the Ottoman Empire. It became so scarce, and everyone wanted it because it was, for medicinal properties, for digestion, for teeth whitening. There's a lot of cool stories. I'll share one over here. Like the Sultan during the Ottoman Empire, he would hoard all the mastika, and it became limited in exports. And there's another side story there. It became so expensive that people started to use anise to flavor spirits. But before that, mastika was like the main spice, the main herb. And it's been stayed in tradition in Greece still today. So other cool things about mastika, the product today, you're seeing it used in creams, face wash, soap, and a lot of other liqueurs, even making sparkling water out of it. Super refreshing. So if you want to, so how's it made? So basically you take the mastic resin. The resin itself is like an arduous process. You have to score the tree, let it drip, it falls into the sand, it's hand-picked, it's dusted off, it's dried in the sun, and it's all done by hand. No machines could do this process. It's been done this way for thousands of years. So to make the actual liqueur, you take the resin, you're adding neutral spirit, and you're distilling it together. Then you either add water and sugar to dilute it down, and it's typically consumed as an after-dinner drink. So mastika, like where I said siporo before, is kind of in the middle or during a meal. Mastika tends to be consumed at the end of a meal. It's great for people who like amaro, who don't like the bitterness of amaro but want an after-dinner drink because it's not really bitter, it's slightly sweet, it's very pleasant. In my bar, I use it in a lot of cocktails as a modifier. I think it's an awesome ingredient to use. It has so much flavor, and it's a flavor that is so distinct. You can't get this flavor from anything else besides mastika, which is why I love it. So I want everyone to smell this, because I love asking people what they smell when they smell mastika, because since it's such a unique thing, nobody smells the same thing. It's kind of hard to pinpoint. So I want to see if anyone has any cucumbers. Yeah, for sure. Dill pickle, cool, good. Light flower, definitely. Like for me, it always reminds me of like grating a carrot, like peeling a carrot. That smell of like a fresh carrot. So it's cool. It's cool to know that mastika only comes from this one resin. So the flavor is unique. It tends to have piney flavors, piney notes, because the tree itself is like an evergreen shrub. Yeah, let's taste it. So we are tasting the Skinos mastika right now. What do you guys think? Just like a Christmas tree. Yeah, it has definitely those strong pine flavors. To me, it's so refreshing. And think about Greece being a hot country. Like a lot of the liqueurs are definitely like refreshing to drink on a hot day. So I love it. And normally mastikas are going to be a little bit sweet. There's almost always sugar added, some to varying degrees. And in Greece, there's a bunch of different brands, but definitely the biggest one is Skinos for sure. And they make a very high quality product, and that's what I like to use at my bar. We also have a lot of other products, Kleos, Roots. Roots is also very good. Let's go over here. Hey, what's up? Homericon's another small producer, and then Verino Antica. All these are available in the United States. Skinos with Domain Select, Kleos with Winebow, Roots is with Blueprint. So they're definitely easily accessible, and they're becoming easier and easier to find and use. So real quick, how is it used in bars? I mean, it's definitely great as an after-dinner drink. At my restaurant, I always keep a bottle in the freezer, and if I have some special guests that I want to kind of give something fun, end their night with a nice experience, I'll pour them a quick little cold shot, and it's so refreshing. They always end up loving it. But my favorite thing is to use it in cocktails. So this is a cocktail at the right I serve in my restaurant. It's called the Far West Side. We serve it with gin or vodka, fresh cucumber juice, mastica, muddled mint, and a little bit of simple syrup. And it's my most popular drink at the restaurant. I also use it in sangria. I love using it with mezcal. I find that the earthiness, the earthy vegetal flavors in mastica pair very, very well with the earthy and smokiness of mezcal. But I think gin and mastica are like an amazing pair. Like the aromatics of the gin mixed with the unique flavor and the sweetness of the mastica are perfect combinations. And definitely know it is sweet, so you can kind of use it as a sweet modifier in cocktails. Cool? Any questions about mastica real quick before we move on to ouzo? All right. So ouzo. So like I think most people raise their hands when they said they've had ouzo before. Don't taste this neat, please. I want to make sure no one tastes this neat, because I find that a lot of people dislike ouzo because they went to a diner once and the owner gave them a shot of ouzo and said yamas, and then they chugged it and then they were like, what the heck just happened to my mouth? So ouzo is an anise flavored spirit. It's similar to sambuca, pastis, arak, which is from Lebanon, raki, which comes from Turkey, but it's made a little bit differently. So like I said, since the 14th century in Greece, they were making tsipora with anise. So tsipora with anise basically is the godfather to ouzo. And the main difference today is that tsipora with anise is a grape distillate, where ouzo comes from neutral grain spirit or just neutral spirit, rectified spirit. So to start ouzo, you start with 97% ABV alcohol. You then add all your botanicals to it. The number one botanical for ouzo, anise, aniseed, fennel seed is also a big one, also adding star anise. But it's not just that, they also have, every distillery has their secret recipe. And in Greece, they don't share their recipes. When they say secret, they mean it's a secret. But other common botanicals are chamomile, cardamom, sometimes ginger, sometimes elderflower, sometimes clove, different things like that. So after it's distilled, that goes through a second distillation. They then add in water to dilute it down. Typically, it's a minimum of 45% ABV. But it could go up to 50 or 60 sometimes. While ouzo was invented in Tirvnou, it's a northern part of Greece, the hometown is Lesvos, which my family's from. There's a little village called Plomari. In that one tiny village alone, there's over 17 distilleries. So one important thing to mention about ouzo is that it's a social beverage. So the way you drink ouzo is not like the other Greek spirits. When you're drinking ouzo, you order a bottle at the restaurant. The owner puts a bottle down on the table, he'll put down a bucket of ice and then put down a bottle of water, and you get to dilute it as you wish. You don't order like a glass of ouzo. It comes in different sized bottles. So you might get a big bottle depending on how many people you are, or a small bottle if you're by yourself. That's one thing I wish we could do here in the US. We only have 750s. We don't get the 179s or whatever they're called. So you have the ouzo, you add water. A lot of ouzo purists only add water, but I like to add ice to it. And that's it. That dilution is an important element of tasting ouzo. So today we are drinking an ouzo called Barbayanis, which is a very big distillery from the island of Plomari. It's one of my favorites. And I think it's just my favorite because it's what my grandpa drinks. So if you want to smell it, and then quickly, then it adds a little ice. There should be ice on the table. Hopefully it didn't all melt by now. The reason why you dilute the ouzo is because of the anethol. So anethol is an oil-based compound that is found inside of anise. And that's why ouzo turns cloudy. Do you see how as you add the water and ice into your glass, it basically turns white instantly? Right? Everyone did that by now? Yeah. So basically what's happening is the anethol, which is the oil found in the anise, it enters an emulsion state. So it comes from a solid and it starts floating basically inside the water, and it gives it that cloudy appearance. The cloudier it gets, it's considered a better quality ouzo. And yeah. So what do you smell as you smell it? Anise, definitely smell anise. They use a little bit of clove, yeah. I mean, to me, it tastes like a fresh piece of fennel, like biting into like a whole raw fennel. Some dill, of course. All right, let's taste it. A little bit sweet. Cardamom, definitely, yeah. And as you add water, and it's why I think ouzo needs to be diluted, because it's intense. It's intense without water. When it's not diluted, it's harsh. As you dilute it, it allows you to really kind of taste all the botanicals instead of just tasting like anise, and a lot of people have an aversion to it. Adding the dilution kind of lets it become more subtle and allows the aromatics to really kind of stand out. And I think you get to fully appreciate the diverse range of flavors that are in the spirit. Like I mentioned before, how ouzo or just drinking in Greece goes hand in hand with food. Even if you go to a restaurant, you order ouzo and no food, like food will end up on the table. Like you don't just drink. You go to a restaurant, order ouzo, and then you might have like sardines and olive oil just show up. Or some olives, of course. And that's kind of the way it's meant to be drunk, especially in the island of Lesbos where my family comes from. You'll have Greeks standing in the village, ordering a bottle of ouzo, and they'll just sit and talk for hours. And they don't get too drunk, so they do it for over a long period of time, but Greeks love to talk, and they're very passionate, whether it's politics, music, politics, they're going to talk your ear off about it. So these are some other producers we have. Well, we're tasting Barbayanis today. We have Plomari, which is probably the biggest distillery in Lesbos. It's named after the village. Ouzo 12, which used to be the biggest. It's made from Metaxa. Stoupakis, which comes from the island of Chios. And then Obastalagma, which is another one that comes from southern part of Greece. All these are distributed in New York. For those of you who work in New York and are interested in serving in your restaurant. You know, for all the other things I was saying, what cocktails I like to use it in, ouzo is one of those things that I haven't had the best luck serving it in cocktails because it is a strong flavor and it turns your drinks white. But I have had some luck using it instead of absinthe. And that's kind of when ouzo started to gain a lot of popularity. It was when people were scared that absinthe was going to make you hallucinate. Ouzo was like the easy substitute, and that's kind of what put ouzo on the map. Cool. Something cooling about ouzo. It's like has like menthol flavor. It kind of, I already feel I'm less hot. I'm sweating less already. So the next thing we're talking about is Metaxa. So Metaxa is a brand. It's also a category, and I'll get into that. So Metaxa is one of the oldest and most iconic brands in Greece. Not just liquor brands, just brands in general. It was founded in 1888 by Spiros Metaxas. And it's actually one of only two brands in existence in Greece that survived both World War I, World War II, and the economic crisis of 2008. And the only other company is called George Karelias, and it's a tobacco company. So we have alcohol and tobacco are strong businesses in Greece. So it's basically Metaxa starts off as a brandy. It is then sweetened with dessert wine, Muscat of Samos, and it is infused with botanicals. They have a large line extension, the 5-star, 7-star, 12-star, Grand Fine. They also have some older stuff that's more exclusive. These are the main ones. And in front of you have the 12-star today. In Greece, it's typically consumed like you would a brandy, so as an after-dinner drink served in a snifter glass. But it's also great to use in cocktails. I love using it in replace of other brown spirits for old fashions or in Manhattans. So let's taste it. So yeah, like I said, we have the 12-year here, which is aged for an average of 12 years. On the nose, I think you could really get that apricot and rose. A lot of little fruit notes on there. So you can taste the sweetness, but it's not overly sweet. It gets a subtle sweetness, which I like. And when George Metaxa, or Spiros Metaxas was making Metaxa, he was trying to create the smoothest brown spirit that existed. And I think he achieved by doing that, by adding a little bit of the Greek wine, the botanicals, you definitely get a smooth spirit. It's definitely unique. It's not like other brandies out there, which I really think it's important to call it what it is. It's not really brandy, it's not a cognac, it's a Greek spirit. It's unique only to Greece. What do you guys think? Anyone have any opinions about it? Thank you. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I think it's about 40%. Yeah. Cool. All right, so the next two spirits we're going to talk about are going to be sweet liqueurs. So Greece has a nice history of liqueurs, and they kind of were all homemade products. So really aren't seeing too many commercial liqueurs yet besides mastika, but there's a lot of cool things out there. So rakomelo is kind of a, what's the term? Combination of words. Raki meaning like tsipuro, melo meaning honey. Rakomelo is a honey raki liqueur. They also add cinnamon and orange peels and other botanicals. Typically it's been homemade, so you'd have like the grandma, the yaya, after half the bottle was complete, they'd take in local honey to fill up the bottle, shake it up, throw in some cinnamon sticks, add in an orange peel, boom, you have rakomelo. But now we're seeing some really cool brands and products out there. The one we have today is from a fairly young producer called Roots. How old is Roots?
Roots is like maybe about 4 or 5
Yeah.
years of production, and about 2 or 3 in the States.
Yeah, so only 4 or 5 years old. And it's one of the only commercial producers of rakomelo. Because up until then, it was just yaya's cough medicine. Grandma's making a little core to help you with your cold. And like in Greeks, drinking was always a part of either food or medicinal properties. So having the honey, the cinnamon, the raki, that was a way for you to kind of beat your cold or help an upset stomach. Well, rakomelo is one of my favorite Greek spirits because it's just so good. So smell it. I mean, the first thing I get right off the bat is the honey. I mean, it's full of honey. That's the only sweetener that's used in here. So you got to put a lot of honey to get that sweetness. Get the cinnamon for sure. I mean, this is using, I think, cassia bark, cinnamon, orange peel. Really awesome nose. Let's taste it. What do you guys think?
We like
It's good, right?
able to marry.
Yeah. Tastes like Christmas, yeah. I mean, it's such a fun spirit to use. Like, everyone loves honey cinnamon flavors. I feel like it's a classic flavor combination. And you add this with bourbon, with rum, with any of those dark spirits, you are definitely going to have a great drink. I like using it with Torres brandy, making it with rakomelo, bourbon, and sweet vermouth in a nice, great old-fashioned or Manhattan variation. So notable producers. Right now, Roots is the main one that exists, but the grandmas and grandpas all over Greece have been making this for centuries. So there really isn't too much else to go over about rakomelo. I just think it's worth mentioning that it is becoming more popular. It's on the rise. And I think you could have a lot of fun mixing it in your bars because it is just so versatile and works really well with a lot of different spirits. So the last spirit liqueur I want to talk about is called tentura. So tentura comes from the Italian word tintura, which basically means tincture. It comes from the city of Patras. So Patras is a very important port city in the northern part of the Peloponnese region. So you have Greece, you have the Peloponnese, which is the peninsula that separates northern Greece from southern Greece, and Patras is the city that kind of bridges the two. And it was always been an important port city through the centuries. Basically, one of the gateways from the Middle East and the Mediterranean to the rest of Europe. And because of that, you'd have a lot of merchants and ship owners and spice dealers who would stop in there and sell their goods in the city. So the citizens of Patra had an abundance of herbs and spices at their disposal to play with. And that's basically how tentura came to be. So tintura is typically made with cinnamon and clove, are the main two botanicals used. But you also see them use mastica sometimes, star anise, nutmeg, and any other strong and delicious botanicals. It's sometimes brandy-based, mainly brandy-based, yeah. So how is it consumed? In Greece, it's also consumed as an Aphrodisiac drink. They love Aphrodisiac drinks there. But it also is mixed with coffee, and they make a cafe corretto by just adding Greek coffee, a splash of tintura. And I love using it in coffee cocktails as well. So let's smell it. So a little bit similar to the racomolo, but instead of having that soothing honeyness, you have more of that cinnamon and clove punch. I used to call it Greek fireball, and then I got in trouble. But yeah. I mean, it has like that big red gum flavor. Like it's packed with cinnamon, packed with cloves, and because of that, it is comforting. Roots is again another producer of this. The one you're tasting today is from a small distillery called Verino. So now that we tasted the spirits, I kind of want to give a little overview of just modern Greece and what's happening in Greece right now. So in 2008, we had the economic crisis here in the States, but it hit Greece hard. The younger people, I think under 40, the unemployment rate was like almost 50%. Because of that, you had a lot of people leaving Greece, moving to other countries. But recently, in the last 5-10 years, you're seeing this renaissance happening. And in Greece, if you ask them about it, they'll talk about how from crisis comes creativity. And I think it's a beautiful story. You're seeing a lot of people that maybe went abroad to learn in London or New York or Germany, coming back to Greece, taking some experiences they've learned and applying it to their heritage and their culture, and doing this awesome thing. And it's so hard to describe. You almost have to go to Greece to experience it. But in the last few years, Greece has had several bars on the 50 best list. Baba Aram was one that's on the left. It's been on for many years in a row. And then the Clumsies was on the right. It's been on the last few years in the top 10, I think number 6 last year. They're also making a lot of other cool Greek spirits as well. And the cocktail culture in Athens right now is strong and vibrant. If you go down, you can walk down several streets, hop from one bar to the next, having drinks you've never really got to experience before with such authentic, true Greek hospitality, where they're so thankful that you're there and they want you to feel warm and welcome. And it's such an awesome thing to go and experience that. And I highly encourage everyone to go to Greece. It's also cool about Athens. Athens used to just be a place you'd go for a night and then take the ferry to the islands. But now people are spending more and more time. Athens is now becoming a destination. And I think you could definitely give credit to the bars there for kind of spearheading this movement. So a lot of other new cool products that are happening right now in Greece. So 3 Cents is a soda brand. They actually have a booth here right now. They're in the main room. You should definitely go check them out. They're producing awesome sodas and mixers. They are all started by bartenders, and they're making kick-ass product. Craft beer, there's craft breweries now are popping in Greece. That movement has started, I think, in the United States and has slowly taken over the world. And other craft spirits. So, like I mentioned, Tsipuro. You're having more high-quality Tsipuro producers now that are experimenting with aging their spirits longer in oak and producing very fine spirits. Greek gin is now starting. There's a few Greek producers making gin right now in Greece. And just shameless plug, I'm also collaborating on a gin right now using wild herbs botanicals from Greece. That hopefully should be in the market by the end of the year. So I'm really excited about that. Maybe next year we'll taste it. It's called Stray Dog Wild Gin. Yeah, that's just a picture there. Sample bomb. Real product coming soon. But that's all I have, guys. Thank you so much. Ευχαριστώ. Yamas.